This is a video about personal statements, so I'm going to go through my advice for how to write one, what sort of stuff to include, and what I did that worked for me when I wrote mine. So I've split it up into sections, and you can look in the description for those so that you can skip to the times of things that might be more relevant for you, or so you can go back to anything if you need to. The first section is what is a personal statement. So it's a short essay about you and your interest in the subject that you're applying for at university. It should also be about what you do outside of your subject. So a lot of universities suggest a 70-30 split between academic stuff and extracurricular stuff. Some places like Oxbridge don't stick to this rule where they prefer to know 80% about your academic stuff, and some other places like to know a bit more about you as a person, which is quite nice of them. It can be a maximum of 4,000 characters or 47 lines, whichever one cuts you off first, annoyingly. Section 2 is how do you plan a personal statement and what kind of things can you put in it? So I'd say start off by reading a few for the subject that you're applying to, so you can get used to the style that people write in and what sort of things tend to be included. Once you've done that, it's a good idea to make some bullet points so that you know what you can include in yours. To do this, I used a few questions in different categories and then wrote down bullet points for all of those. So the questions were: 1, why do you want to study this subject and what first got you interested? 2, what have you done that shows you enjoy the subject? So this can be anything to do with your subject, so reading newspapers, essays, scientific journals, research papers, TED Talks, if you've done an EPQ or a summer school or work experience or work shadowing, or if you've entered any competitions to do with your subject. Talking about anything like that can be included in the academic section. And then the third set of questions is: what extracurricular activities have you done and what skills have they developed? So this could be any extracurricular thing that you've done that you want to include. So mentoring, tutoring, clubs, sports or music things that you've been part of or that you've led. If you're a prefect or you've volunteered in some way. DOV and NCS a lot of people use. So anything like that can go into your extracurricular section. So the third section is how do you actually write a personal statement? And this was absolutely my worst bit. Getting started with writing something, it did not make me happy. I didn't like the idea of writing a draft because I wanted to write a personal statement and I wanted it to be perfect, but a first draft is never going to be perfect. And I was like, I don't want to write it. I'm just going to enjoy my bullet points. Can I just send off a list of bullet points? I was told I could not, so I had to get around it somehow. So I did that by leaving the introduction until the end, because it's so hard to introduce something that you haven't written because you don't know what you're introducing. Another thing I did was a pre-draft. So I essentially tricked my brain into thinking I wasn't writing a draft when I was. I took all of my bullet points and I made a few sentences about each of them. So I wrote what it was that I had done, why I did it, what I learnt from it, what I enjoyed about it or didn't enjoy. And that gave me a few sentences to then copy and paste into a document. And then I had a pre-draft, which was basically a first draft. So once you've got this pre-draft, you'll begin to build up a structure because you can see where your points will link to each other and you can put them in an order where they flow a bit better. Another important thing when you're writing your personal statement is to make sure you're not just listing off everything you've ever done academically and in your free time. It's better to show a few things that you've really interacted with than to list off like a library of books. So to show you've interacted, you can talk about your opinions, or if you've read something and you had a question, what was that question and how did you investigate it further? Once you've got the main body of the personal statement written, you're going to want an introduction and a conclusion too. So these don't have to be that long, they can be a couple of sentences. For the introduction, definitely try to avoid cliches like ever since I was 5 I've loved this subject, or starting with a quote, because those have been overused so much. If you're stuck for what to put in an introduction, you can think back to when you first decided you wanted to study the subject or when you first really enjoyed it and what was it about it that made you enjoy it so much. Once you write those kind of things down, you'll have hopefully some ideas to draft into an introduction. And for your conclusion, if you're not sure what to talk about, you can always mention the transferable skills you got from your extracurriculars and why they make you a really good candidate to study your course. Section 4 is once you've got a personal statement written, how do you improve it? So my main thing here is definitely ask teachers to read it. They've usually seen loads in the past, so they can tell you what's good and what isn't so good and how to improve it. Although, once you show it to more than one teacher, you will probably get some conflicting opinions. So listen to what they're saying and take it on board and think about if you should apply all of it and which bits. Another way that I improved mine was using an online text-to-speech converter thing. You basically copy and paste in what you've written and it will read it out to you. And that helped me notice where I had a paragraph which was one sentence. So I definitely needed some punctuation there, and it can help you notice where things aren't flowing into each other that well. Section 5 is just a couple of final tips for you from things that I found really useful when I was writing my personal statement. So the first one is make sure you're selling yourself. This is your chance to big yourself up basically and tell universities why you deserve a space. So don't be too humble about the stuff that you've done. If you've led a group project, don't just say that you've taken part in it, things like that. And the second one is make a new document every time you start a new draft. That way, if one crashes and you can't access it because technology is confusing, then you've got the old one to fall back on and you don't have to start the whole thing over again. So I hope this has been helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and good luck with writing your personal statement.